Stop the cap.
Top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities, 88% of the stock market. The next 40% owns 12% of the stock market. The bottom 50 has debt. They have credit card bills, they rent their homes, they have auto loans, and we've got to give them some relief. That I was struck by the statistic from last year.
That's the message right there. Just as a bystander, I'm like, wow, okay.
All right, or that I like the examples, and I was really struck by two different statistics last year. Summer of 2024, Americans took more European vacations than they had in history. Summer of 2024, more Americans were using food banks than they ever have in history. I went into two food banks that near my hometown to ask, what's the story? And they said, it really takes, for a lot of people, it's a loss of dignity to walk in a food bank.
Of course.
But they were seeing a new phenomenon, that it wasn't their traditional clientele. It wasn't people who'd lost their homes. It wasn't people out on the street. These were working families who could no longer, $100 at the grocery store, that basket of groceries every week, they were missing 5, 6, 7 things, and they were coming to the food bank to top up. So that's not a great America. Record European vacation, record food banks.
What irritates me about this whole political climate is the fact that we have to make collective decisions with illiterate people. Like, we really have to debate livelihoods with people who don't read, who can't comprehend. And that's what's so frustrating when it comes to voting. It's like you would know the clear answer, you would know what would benefit everybody, and it'll be that one person that is just full of hate, full of illiteracy, that will vote against it simply because of their own personal feelings, not for the collective benefit. These type of people are easy to sway. They fall for every piece of propaganda. They don't want to hear anything new, anything different. They think anything that they didn't learn growing up is wrong. They don't listen to any outside sources. They basically live inside a cult. That is the result of the issues we're having today.
This video is not going to be long at all. This brother couldn't have put it any better way than what he just said. That is the problem. Stupidity affects everybody, especially when you have a system called a democracy, and then you have people in positions of power who have a vested interest in maintaining their position of power, who are smart enough and work together enough to control the messaging, control the media, control the propaganda, to, classic example, divide and conquer. And you end up with people who will vote against their collective best interest because they feel that there's somebody else amongst them or some other group that's undeserving or, has some stereotypes on them, and they'll sabotage the whole thing. Like I said, Brown versus Board of Education and the integration of, American society combined with, the 1965, was that 65 or 68? 68 Civil Rights Act. What did that do? Had to be 68 because King died in 68 and he gave his last speech in 68. It had to be 68. Anyway, or was it 65? I'm like losing my, my timeline. I know Malcolm X got killed in 65. But in any event, I'm saying that, this is the same thing that happened with the pools, the public pools, all throughout America, mainly in the South. Once the society was to be desegregated. We didn't really integrate. We most certainly did not integrate economically. But once the society was desegregated, as I pointed out before, all those public pools, them white people shut them pools down. And this is where you had the explosion of, not only the suburbs, but pools in the suburbs, or private residencies with pools as opposed to public pools. That's how badly they didn't want to share with black people. And this is one of the, racism is one of the main reasons you can't get anything done in this country. People want to talk about other countries, Japan. They want to talk about, Scandinavia, like Norway, how they have these, robust safety nets, that whether you want to call it socialism or just safety nets, like they have protections. They have worker protections. They have like rent protections, housing protections. Education is essentially free. But you can't have that in America because, one group wants to feel superior to the other group, primarily white folks. It's amazing at how all the MAGA people are, the ones that are getting hurt by all of Trump's policies, primarily, whether it's the farmers, or whether it's the, like even with the healthcare. I don't know if you've all been to rural hospitals. They're shit. They're shit. And most of the people in there don't have health care because most people get their health care from their employment. And so if they, have a shitty job or a job with no health care or a job that doesn't cover anything, you end up with that. You end up with all type of shortcomings, in the healthcare system, and, people having to engage and practice defensive medicine. It's fucked up. Because insurance companies don't want to cover anything because they don't have the premium insurance. They don't have the best insurance. And all of these are subsidized by the government. And so when Trump shuts all that down, then people don't get the health care that they need. It's crazy how what the Democrats are trying to, protect with the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, which a lot of these white people don't even know is Obamacare. It's like something like 85% of the people who are on the Affordable Care Act, are in red states. They're not in blue states. They're in red states. Blue states have the money. This is why California threatening to, basically not send its money to the federal government is a big deal. Because the blue states, while everybody says, oh, everything's too expensive in blue states and, woke this and woke that, the blue states are the ones that are paying for everything. The red states are broke. So here you have the people, the white people in these red states, because with the exception of the black belt in the South, many of these areas, these states that have long been, red, they have small white populations, and they're predominantly white. Places like Utah. And blue states are the ones that are subsidizing their health care, subsidizing their SNAP benefits. As I pointed out about, New Mexico. Black people don't live in New Mexico. We don't have nothing to do with no New Mexico. But these people have all these ideas. They sit around and listen to Fox News all day. And they have all these ideas of who's deserving, who's undeserving, ideas. It's nothing crazier to me than, a poor white person running around talking about how hardworking they are. And it's not just to white people. You also have the freaking Hispanics as well that have this sort of mentality. Or even that Indian man that was questioning the black man walking through the neighborhood like he was a white Karen. You know, at the end of the day, if you really look at all this stuff, it's really anti-blackness. We can't have anything in this country because of anti-blackness. You know, America cannot function as a normal society as anti-blackness. And the people who convince you of what you don't need are the people who are literally stupidly wealthy by not having to subsidize any of your needs. And the vast majority of them are white. And they somehow convince you. It's like you got, you know, somebody who makes $100,000 an hour convincing somebody who makes freaking $25 an hour that the biggest problem in society is the person making $7.25 an hour. This shit is hilarious. But that's the society that we live in. But yeah, I don't want to make this video too long. I think what he said was just beautiful. You know, I mean, you're literally having to vote, you know, with uneducated people. Not even uneducated people. I shouldn't use that word. It's not even uneducated people. Ignorant people. You're dealing with ignorant people. And I don't know how to get around that part because, you know, even when it comes to the wealthy elites, you know, as far as they're concerned, you're ignorant. You don't know the rules of the game. You don't know, like when Trump was up there, you know, debating Hillary Clinton, he was like, you know, yeah, I use the tax loopholes. That makes me smart. Truth be told, he doesn't know the tax loopholes. He has, you know, he's rich enough to where he has the smart people around him that can get him to understand the tax loopholes and the things that exist. You know, which, you know, I keep trying to tell people, you know, the great equalizer is here, which is AI, in terms of, you know, knowing, you know, certain information. It's all there. It's available. You can ask a direct question and get a direct answer that's very specific to the question that you're asking. You know what I mean? Like ask, like example, just ask AI, like ask ChatGPT, like, what are some tax exemptions that I can tap into, you know, for my vehicle? Or what are some tax exemptions from my state, right? Whether it's EVs or whether your vehicle is over 6,000 pounds. Why do you think you see all these white people riding around in these big ass Escalades and Tahoes and shit? You know why? Because there's a tax exemption for them. The heavier the vehicle basically qualifies as a utility vehicle. And if you drive it less than 50% of the time or something like that, or at least 50% of the time, you know, if you have an LLC, you get to write the vehicle off with like, I forget what it is, but it's like this depreciation model. You get to write it off. And that's why they buy those big ass vehicles, those gas guzzling vehicles, as a tax write-off. And you're sitting there looking at the vehicle. Oh man, but that's $120,000 truck. You know, but if they got a company, obviously you have to, you know, be bringing in a decent amount of money. But I'm just saying, it's a tax exemption. The tax exemptions are there for the business class. They're not there for you. They're not there for the working class. And Cap asked an interesting question the other day, and I think I said it in my other video. He asked the question of whether the American dream was really for the working man or whether it was just for people who are in business. Because if you're in business, you know, you can do exceptionally well because the tax code and the whole system is set up to benefit you almost exclusively. Now, the stupid thing is, and what, you know, people who deal with, you know, essentially consumers directly, because right now I think a lot of people are being held afloat by catering to the rich, right? Catering to people who are already wealthy and catering to their needs and ignoring everybody else. But I think at this point, you know, like, I don't know if you saw the number of the repossessions, you know, for 2025, right? You know, like, bottom line, I don't know how people think that their business is going to be successful when people don't have money. On a side note, I see these articles being written, these condescending articles by women and feminists who want to come out and say that they want to come out and say that what are they saying? They want to come out and say, that women are choosing not to date and all this other stuff, and men can't be on my level, and dustiness and this, that, and the third. And it's like, again, there's a direct correlation between, men being unemployed and underemployed and not getting married. There's a direct correlation between men being unemployed and underemployed and not being in relationships. Like when it comes to women and their success, in this world, a woman, what does it take for a woman to really say that she's successful? She basically only has to take care of herself. In order for a man to really say that he's successful and worthy of being in a relationship, the expectation, regardless of all the feminism and everything else, the expectation is that a man, basically take on the responsibility of at least, what would you say, 3 people, 4 people, right? The replacement rate is that at least 2, you got to have at least 2 children for the replacement rate. And that's just for the population to stay flat. So let's go with the idea of 4 people, not even including the in-laws that may need, support. So as a man, you got to take care of your wife, be the chief breadwinner, take care of your children, right? Pay the lion's share of the, pretty much everything. I think most women these days, they want to work and they want to, contribute to some bit because, a lot of women, from what I've seen, are completely against being wholly dependent on the man, which, I'm fine with. I'm like, okay, fine. You want to have, but she wants to put, her a few pennies in the piggy bank so that she can say that she contributed. Okay, fine. But the reality is that, most women, they don't want to, most women, they don't want to deal with a man that's, not ahead of them in some fashion. And I don't want to get into all the, the double standards and everything where, women want a man to, be this egalitarian, feminist type of man while, still making substantially more than her so that he can provide, her with the lifestyle that she can't even afford herself. I'm not even here to get into that. Y'all know how I feel about that. But this is where we are. This is where we are. But in terms of, this country has had decades upon decades of using mental gymnastics to convince your average white person that the biggest problem in America is that, the blacks are breathing up all the white man's air, and that's the biggest issue that this nation faces. Right? That's what they've done. And so all the things that were fought for, after the Gilded Age, child labor laws, full medical and dental, paid holiday leave, pensions, right? All that was fought for, right? Getting paid, double time if that's what you're doing, right? It's like time and a half, and then like double, like if you go over 40 hours and then you get double time, right? If you know anybody that works at Amazon, like Amazon goes out of their way to make sure that their workers don't get double time. They're not going to pay you double time. They're like, fuck that. When Cap was at GM, they let him work double time if he wanted to work double time. But slowly over time, it turned into, we don't want you working double time because we're not trying to pay that type of money. Which I get to a degree, but it's like how many hours can somebody literally live in the plant and not, not go home, but, Cap was the wrong one to fuck with on that one because he was single, he was childless, and, he had just got out of being broke. So all he wanted to do was work because he was like, before I had no money and all the time in the world. And now, I got, you know, lots of money, but I have no time. I'll take that exchange. And that's what he did. You know, but everything that was fought for in the, you know, the first half of last century has been completely eroded. I mean, it's been completely gutted and completely eroded. And white people were the cause of that. They were the main ones that made that happen. Because they got duped and they got fooled with all the, you know, your real problem is the blacks are breathing up all the air and the welfare queens and all that shit. Meanwhile, it was just the white wealthy elites that, you know, just wanted to gut the entire system and go right back to the Gilded Age, because that's what you're experiencing. It's the Gilded Age 2.0. You know, and at this point, you know, I don't know like what people could do, you know, to fight back, because I still see white people online talking dumb shit, talking about cultural wars, you know, up there, Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, you know, talking about what the hell else are they talking about? You know, just up there talking about you know, our birth rates are down, as though that's anybody else's fault. Your birth rates are down primarily because you can argue feminism, but primarily because the young men don't make enough money to be economically viable, which goes right back to a point that the only person that's really stated that publicly is Scott Galloway. You know, you don't have enough men who are economically viable, and the definition of that is broad. But like I said, you know, the idea typically is what would make a woman comfortable enough to say yes, that she wants to marry a man. It's going to be primarily he can afford a house and he makes enough money to where, you know, yeah, she's working, that's cool, but that's just like an addendum to what the fuck he's got going on. So if she wants to stop when she gets pregnant, you know what I mean? If she decides that she doesn't want to work anymore and can stay, she wants optionality. Okay? And this is why feminism is bullshit. She wants the option to not to work. She wants the option. If she wants to be a boss babe, she can be a boss babe. And if she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, she has that option, which requires him to be in what position ahead of her? Even though when she wants to be a boss babe, you know, him being ahead is a threat because, you know, clutch the pearls, the patriarchy. You know, we've been arguing over stupid shit. Women argue over stupid shit, which is why you get some of these guys running around talking about women shouldn't have the right to vote. Because men already know that women are fickle. And if you let women run shit, you know, they're going to, you're just going to end up in an argument. You're going to lose either way. You know, if you subscribe to egalitarianism, as soon as she comes across some other woman that's more comfortable than you, then she's going to call you weak. You know, if you subscribe to being a hardcore patriarch, then it's oppression. So you can't win. But those are the main reasons why the white birth rates is down. You don't pay enough. You know, again, average first time home buyer in 1960 was 24 years old. Look it up. The average home buyer in 2025 is 38 years old and is probably 40 now. It was 38 years old last year in 2024, 2023. Now it's got to be 40. Because the houses in the time that, you know, since Trump's been elected, the house prices, the average median house price has gone from what is it? I shouldn't say the average median house price, because the average and the median are two different things. But I'm saying that I think it's the median house price has gone from 400,000 since we first started having this conversation to 430,000. So that's gone up. So that would mean, in my opinion, the age would have to go up. Unless somebody's going to magically pull $30,000 out of their ass. You know, so we got some serious civil unrest on the way. It's serious. Like, people think it's a fucking game. People think that it can't look like, I don't know, give me a movie. I don't want to say The Purge. The Purge is a little bit too extreme, but, you know, people think that it can't, you know, start looking crazy. Yes, it can. Especially when you have people who are always going to punch down, or they're going to, seize the broken society as an opportunity to engage in, enacting their racism, going back to the Turner Diaries and the Day of the Rope. If you don't know what the Day of the Rope is, it's in the Turner Diaries. Google it, AI it, whatever you want to do, you'll understand what it is. There's going to be people who want to make that happen. There's going to be people who want to purge, the country. Aside from all the other fascism stuff, they want it to be a white, essentially, ethno-state, a white Christian nationalist ethno-state. That's what they want. And if you listen to that interview with Marquette and those two white supremacist brothers that have an Instagram page, then you'd understand that. I got a video coming on that. I just haven't posted it yet. But anyway, I said I wasn't going to make this video long, so let me end this video now. But yeah, everything this brother said at the beginning of the video, 100% spot on. That is a huge problem. And, if somebody wants to ask, well, what's the solution? I don't know what the solution is. Because you would think informing people and getting people the information. But apparently, again, when it comes to white people, I'm like, they engage in pathological behavior. They want to believe what they want to believe. If it doesn't lead down the path of them somehow being superior to somebody else, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. If whatever you're saying is going to equate to them somehow being shoulder to shoulder with some black person, they don't want to hear it. So anyway, that's all I got for y'all. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.
On the scene, diamond blingy, whole screen. Checkerboard Louis V. I'm so fresh and so clean. Stuff them bands in my jeans, slap them 30s in them things. Pull the trigger, let it sing. Then go smoke a Russian cream.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hello?
Where you at?
Where we at? Oh, you want to know where I'm at? We out.